Right, so let's take this conversation forward now. We're joined by Mzansi, he's a member of parliament, Mr. Makashule Gana, who joins us on the gambling crisis that we're seeing in the country. Mr. Gana, good evening. Welcome to Newsfeed PM. This is actually an issue that you've been wanting to raise and have been raising for quite a while now. And you see the data now coming out of the National Gambling Board of South Africa, essentially saying that revenue across the country was 59.3 billion rand in that 23-24 financial year. That's a strong, astronomical amount of money. Your response to the data?
Thanks very much, Naledi. And I remember when I came towards the end of the year, beginning of the year, and at the time people were not paying attention to what's happening. And I'm glad that now even the Statistics South Africa has come out to confirm what we've been saying as Mzansi, that we are dealing with a crisis here, and that we need to stand together as South Africans. We need to, so State South Africa still classify this as a recreational activity. But the people that you had interviewed in that insert tells you that this is no longer a recreation. It's many are gambling with the hope of supplementing their income and also maybe getting something. And that's where the biggest worry is. So when State South Africa was classifying this as a recreation, was that people were gambling the money that they can afford to lose. What we are seeing in South Africa, and there's a report that I'm hoping the National Gambling Board will be releasing in the coming weeks, that will indicate the source of funds that are being used for gambling. From our own reading, our anecdotal, and also talking to many people in the space, there's a significant portion, especially problem gamblers in Limpopo, in your poorer provinces, that are using the funds from Sassa to gamble. So what we know, confirmed by the National Gambling Board and last week by State South Africa, is that the fastest growing industry in the country is gambling. That's what we are dealing with. And we need to find a way to say we are not from the side that says people should not gamble. But it becomes a problem when those that gamble end up being addicted and the burden of care is left to the state. Because once people are addicted, you cannot wash your hands and say it was your choice to gamble. The state has to come in and rehabilitate the people that are addicted to gambling.
That's a big ask. Where would those resources come from? Naturally becomes the next question. That if you have this thing that is happening in the most vulnerable communities, understanding just how addictive gambling certainly can be, do we actually have the resources and the spaces that are available to rehabilitate?
So so you'll know that I've been pushing very hard, and I will not stop until there are proper regulations on advertising. At least we are moving closer. Last week, I did ask the minister, at least myself and the deputy minister, Zuko, deputy minister Godlimpi, we are on the same page. We are working very closely now that has been given the responsibility to deal with gambling, and we will the close relation will bring the advertising in. So once the advertising it's properly regulated, the next step that we need to deal with, it's adjusting the taxes so that the tax that goes so currently you have the operators paying 0.1 of their gross gambling revenue to the Responsible Gambling Foundation. We say that's not enough. It should at least be 1% of the gross gambling revenue that goes to the
Mr. Gana, are you still there?
Responsible Gambling Foundation.
Okay.
And six, that is currently being...
Yes, no, you go ahead. Yes, apologies. You can finish that thought. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying the tax rate that is currently charged, it needs to be relooked at so that we can ring-fence some funds for the Department of Health and Social Development to be able to rehabilitate problem gamblers.
Just as we look at the issue of advertising, and you talk about wanting to challenge that, right? I immediately think about just how big of a space that has certainly become and boomed. You know, the visibility in sporting codes, for instance, and you think the removal of that would have a negative impact on the codes that one would argue might have actually become really reliant on these betting organizations and companies.
So that's why we are not calling for an outright ban as Rise Mzansi.
Yeah.
We are working closely with the industry, the advertising industry, but also operators in the gambling space to say, let's tone down, let's reduce the number of adverts that are going out, because we are very mindful or we understand that at the current moment you've got the advertising industry that people that are in the advertising industry, you know getting some business from the gambling, but also the media, whether it's radio and TV. So we are not calling for an outright ban, but we want to moderate the advertising, the times that they advertise, so that we protect the children and the most vulnerable. So one of the things that we can learn, for instance, from the alcohol industry, they are not allowed to advertise just 24/7. Like there are times that they can't advertise, and that's the kind of model that we are selling to the gambling industry, to say, let's learn from what's happening in the alcohol industry, so that we align the times appropriately, and we don't have a situation where you wake up at 6 o'clock, you just listen to the first news bulletin of the day, and what comes after that, it's advertising for gambling. We can't have that. There's no country that has ever gambled its way to prosperity. So let's not overly celebrate the crisis of gambling. It's the same thing with the alcohol. So that's where we are going. We are not at the tobacco level, but if there's no appetite from the industry to tone down and moderate their advertising, then we might be left with no choice but to advocate for an outright ban.
You know, there's something that you said that really sticks with me, because you talked about children, Mr. Gana. I mean, that really is something that I think we need to let sink in for a second here, because you've been raising the alarm on these gambling platforms being able to lure children, learners in school.
Yes, it's a big problem. We also have school children that are already addicted to gambling, which is a big problem as it is right now. And that's why we will keep on pushing to say, for responsible advertising, the times that to advertise, because now everyone feels like when they've got 10 rands, they've got 20 rands, now they can it can multiply through gambling. And what we do know, Naledi, is that the house never loses. It always wins. So there are very few people, very, very few, other than the operators themselves. There are very few people that will get wealthy as a result of gambling.
Yeah, and just quickly before I let you go, so just as you continue with your process of challenging even just the visibility of advertising where you are right now, the next step that you'll be doing, just as we follow that journey of yours.
So the next step, we are very close to finding one another with the Department of Trade and Industry. Like I said, with the Deputy Minister, we've already had, as Rise Mzansi, a meeting with the Advertising Regulatory Board. So we are working closely with them as they develop the new code for the gambling industry. But also, we are working closely with the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation. There's a very, very important conference that's coming up in November, where I am also pushing for the industry leaders, not just you have, because sometimes with these conferences, You have operators that are juniorizing the events by sending the junior officials into this meeting. So what I'm calling for from the industry is that we want to see the decision makers coming to that conference that's coming up in November, so that together we can make a commitment on how we advance responsible advertising, but also responsible gambling. There are things that we are also working also with the Banking Association. I've got a meeting scheduled with the Banking Association, but also we are reaching out to the Payment Association, because some of these betting companies, they are not registered in South Africa. They are registered in other countries, but they are operating it here in South Africa, and we want to find a way to stop those companies from operating, because anyone that causes damage in South Africa, they must be able to pay for that. So if you have a company that's registered in Curacao, for instance, and then they are operating in South Africa and they are paying 0 cents, but they are causing a damage here, then we must make sure that they don't operate here. So we are reaching out to the Banking Association, the Payment Association, but also I will be meeting or writing to the Minister of Communications to see how best we can block most of these gambling websites that are operating illegally in South Africa.
Yeah. Well, we're going to leave it there, Mr. Gana, and we'll be keeping a close eye on all of those steps that you'll be taking, waiting for an update, of course. Mr. Makashule Gana, the Member of Parliament with Rise Mzansi, speaking to us about South Africa's gambling crisis.